What is up, all of my beautiful people? Hope you all are having a terrific day. And today we're going to be taking a look at a anime I just watched for the first time. It's a little bit of an older anime, but god damn is that anime good. So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be taking a look at the anime Erased. So we're going to jump right into it. If you do like this video, make sure to hit that like on there and drop a comment for me. I don't care what you say, just drop a comment on there, let me know what you think, let me know what I could change, let me know anything, let me know what you're hungry for, doesn't matter. All right, let's go. All right, we're back in it now. So pretty much we're looking at the anime Erased. Now, Erased is an anime that came out back in 2016, so it's a little bit older, but it is still that white hot fire. Oh yeah, you know it's good. And it is actually by A1 Studios. Now, A1 Studio is also the studios that have also brought you things like Fate's Day Apocrypha, or also something like Maggie or Moggy or Magi, or I think it's Moggy. I'm gonna say Moggy in this case. Anyways, and they also brought you the other, oh my gosh, such a sad anime, Your Light in April. Beautiful, beautiful anime, but definitely pretty sad. Pretty sad. If you haven't watched it, that's all I'm gonna say. Go, if anything, go and watch that anime too. That's a damn good anime. Anyways, I just finished watching this show, and in total it is 12 episodes long, so it is super short. It's a little bite-sized mini-series that you can definitely pick up and watch over the weekend, or if you're a nerd like me, you'll start watching it at like 7 o'clock at night and then finish it the next day as soon as you get off work. But yes, I have been dying to talk about this ever since I finished it earlier today, so that's what we're going to be doing. So let's jump into that. All right, so to start, I have to address it. This intro is fire, man. This is their intro. So the intro is by Asian Kung Fu Generation, and it is so good. Asian Kung Fu Generation is also the people that made one of the intros for Full Metal Alchemist, which was I believe that song was Rewrite. One of my favorite overall, favorite anime intros ever. And I'm gonna let you know they brought the heat in this one too. That intro, sometimes I know it's sacrilegious to skip anime intros, but I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do it. If I've already seen like 40 episodes and they all have the same intro, sometimes I'll skip it, but this one didn't need to. White hot fire for that intro. So good. So good. So definitely intro by itself, 10 out of 10. Easy peasy. All right, so the first thing we're going to be looking at here is we're going to be going over just the plot in general. Now, I will say before I go into this at all, spoiler alert, for sure, spoiler alert. If you have not seen the show, turn this video off. What the hell are you doing here? Go watch the show. You have no excuse. It's literally on Netflix and it's on Hulu. Like, who in 2020 doesn't have a Netflix or Hulu account? Yeah, you hear that? That's the sound of nothing, because everybody has one. So go watch it right now before you watch this video. I'll wait for you to come back. Oh, I got you there. You thought I actually like froze there and like paused it. No, I didn't. I'm still here. Yeah. All right. We're actually gonna start now. Anyways, so to go over basically what the plot of is, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. The premise is we follow around the main character, Satoru. Now, Satoru is a 29-year-old kid working at a pizza shop, just being pretty boring, doing his normal thing. Kind of looks like the main person of like a harem anime, but who knows. Anyways, Yeah, he works at a pizza shop, but he has this power that is kind of like the power of premonition, where he can kind of sense when something bad is going to happen. Now, this power does lead him to essentially go back in time to rewrite history to try and save 3 girls that had died during the time he was in, I believe it would be elementary school or middle school. He was 10 years old, I think, during the anime, so I'm gonna say elementary or middle school. Anyways, yeah, so that's like a basic premise of it. If you've already watched the show, you already know, so I'm not gonna say much more than that. But yeah, I mean, I thought the plot was so interesting. Like, yes, I've seen plenty of other animes where they have time travel and there's people like having premonitions or anything like that, but the way that they tied everything in, and it was a non-action anime, definitely made it so much better because they were able to focus on a lot more of the kind of, I would say, kind of like suspense or kind of like detective-esque aspects of the show, which I really enjoyed, to be honest. Now, the show does follow around the 3 main characters, Satoru, Kenya, and Kaio, which those ones are kind of the only ones you're really going to end up caring about by the end of the show. I mean, spoiler alert, yeah, that's kind of like the main 3 that you really actually have to pay attention to. But the way that they develop the characters, and even just the main character, let's say we're just talking about Satoru, him by himself goes through such a kind of metamorphosis, starting as this shy character who doesn't seem like he has a lot of confidence, doesn't really want to talk to anybody, lacks like any sort of self-awareness, to becoming this kind of like hero-esque person who is going out of his way, putting himself in harm's way just to try and save people, even people that he doesn't know. I mean, the dude straight up turns into a butterfly from a fucking caterpillar. Like great character development on his side. Now, the other ones like Sayo and Kenya, they are also pretty well developed. I would actually say out of the 3, Kenya was my favorite character, just by the way that he kind of at the beginning portrayed himself as being like higher than, or mightier than Yi, or holier than Yi, I think is the term. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, he kind of portrayed himself as having a little bit of like being a little bit narcissistic, thinking that he's smarter than everybody, because he actually is, but at the same time also just being very reserved. And then he transforms into this guy who really learns to rely on his friends and rely on the help of others rather than only depending on himself. All right, so I have some bad news. The bad news is that the camera memory card got full when I was recording, and I actually recorded like the entire video, and then I only realized after that it only actually recorded about 10 minutes. So yeah, it feels bad, but we're just gonna jump right into it anyways and just continue on from where we left off. So we'll start from there. So the last person we're gonna talk about is Kaio. Now, I think Kaio also had a fair bit of character development within the main 3 cast members, just because Kaio did kind of very much transform from this girl who was being abused and was very reserved and did not want to talk to anybody, to becoming this person who was actually standing up for herself, standing up for her friends, having a little bit more confidence, and also just beginning to trust people, which I think that was kind of the overarching theme of most of the show, was that most of these people started out as not being able to trust anybody, but by the end of the show they were pretty much opening themselves to all of their friends and the immediate people around them, which I thought was a little beautiful, you know. Now, one of the other things I really enjoyed about this storyline was kind of the stark contrast between the bright and the dark parts of it. And I don't mean like color or art-wise, I mean thematically. There was a lot of points where there was like a huge contrast between you're watching these kids and you're seeing them at Satoru's house, and then all of a sudden the next scene you're seeing them like focusing in on Kaio being abused in her rundown, crappy house where everything is dingy and cold looking. And it's just the way that they convey everything in the story makes things feel so much more real and so much more immersive when you're watching the show, that it kind of really shows you that it is a world that's actually lived in. Like, you actually see the part where there are these people that have much brighter and more positive and embracing lives, and there's people that are suffering and just sad and dingy, and it makes you feel legitimately bad for those characters that have to live in those conditions. So one of the things that I really thought was just so mind-boggling and so creative in the way that they did it was a super small little factor that they had, but it was so in the show, after Satoru goes into a coma and he wakes up and he's realized that he's lost his memories from the previous 15 years, he can only hear his inner monologue as his kid. Whereas when he's a kid and he remembers his future self from the original timeline, he actually hears himself as an adult there. And I thought it was such a small but like just magnificent difference between the two, that after he loses all of his memories of his previous timeline, he pretty much can only hear his kid self, because that's the only self that he actually remembers. He no longer remembers the past timeline of the things that he did to get to that point. He only remembers the kid version of him, of when he was going to elementary school and trying to solve these things with kids. He doesn't even remember that. It was such a subtle, small change that they made, but it had such a huge impact on my viewing experience. I mean, I literally was like flabbergasted when I heard it. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like storytelling genius at its finest. I mean, it was just, oh, beautiful. Stroke of genius. Definitely something so small and subtle, but made a huge impact on the way that I perceive the show, for sure. Now, I would say one of the other things I actually really enjoyed, which I actually did see that there was a number of people that really didn't care for this part of the show, but I, in particular, really liked the relationship between Sato and Airi. Airi being just the character that wasn't in there a whole lot. I mean, she was there whenever he would fast forward back to his previous current timeline, if that makes any sense. But I thought the way that they tied it all back together in the last episode, and they brought her back in and they tied in that theme of cohesiveness and bring her back to him in a way that you really didn't expect it. I mean, I was like, when he came back from his coma and he was walking around and everything had been settled with the teacher already, I was kind of sitting there like, all right, Airi's got to be here somewhere. They're not just gonna leave us hanging. And they really did a good job of kind of convincing me that it wasn't gonna happen. I was just like, all right, well, there's about 3 minutes left of the episode. She's nowhere to be seen. Maybe they just don't bring her back. And then she's back. Best Girl Airi is back at the end. I mean, it was just the way that they interconnected everything and brought it all back to the original point where they first actually formed their bond under the bridge. I think it was just so beautiful in a metaphoric sense that, like, the very beginning of where all of this started, where they ended up under that bridge when he was first fleeing the police, and they ended up in the exact same place at the very end, was just it was just something that it added to my enjoyment of the show that much more. I really appreciated that they took the time to kind of think that through and tie it all back in together. Now, the last thing I'll say is I really, really enjoyed the way that they portrayed time travel in this show. I've seen a lot of shows and animes and normal shows as well that they severely overcomplicate time travel and make it into this huge, confusing aspect that is incredibly hard to grasp. But in this show, they seem to break it down to a pretty simple premise. I mean, pretty much the main character, Sato, can go back in time, and it's mostly involuntary, and he only goes back in time to achieve a specific goal and then come back. Now, I know there is the one instance where he forces himself to go back in time, but I think the way that they portray it, where they make it so he's going back in time with a purpose, he's not just going back whenever he wants, I think that kind of added just a little bit of like extra enjoyment on it, that they made it pretty simple to understand. You didn't have to be like a physicist or a rocket scientist in order to understand how their time travel works. Now, I will say that even though I really did enjoy the show, there were a couple of things here and there that I would say could have been tweaked or changed a little bit. Now, the first one I'm going to address is probably one that I think other people would agree with me on, and that's the fact that they kind of just like halted the character development after the three main characters. Like, they don't really give that much for any of them. I mean, you get to see more about what I would consider the main three, which is Sato, Caillou, whatever her name is, and then Kenya. But aside from that, like, the other friends in the group, you don't really get to see a whole lot about. You don't really grow any attachment to them. Same with the mom and everybody else. Like, they're all kind of just other characters that are just floating around in existence while the main character Sato runs around and solves a mystery. Now, while I really don't mind that they didn't add too much else for anybody else, I kind of do feel like they probably had some room to add in an extra episode or two to do some character building or character development for some of the other ones, at least the main 5 kids. But again, it never really seemed like I had much of an attachment to any of these ones. I mean, even at the very end when Sato comes back from his 15-year coma and there's the short bone marrow transplant girl, like, the whole premise of the ending is contingent upon the teacher or murderer killing this girl. But like, why should we care that this girl dies? Like, we've only seen her maybe 3 times before this point, so like, okay, kill her. Not to sound mean, but kind of to sound mean. Yeah, like, at that point they really didn't build up enough of anything for us to actually care about this girl dying or not. Now, the other part of the show I did have a little bit of trouble with was kind of getting towards the end of the show. I would say particularly like episode 9 through 12. They end up feeling a little bit like disjointed, is one way I could really describe it. Like, I kind of feel like things progress in a weird way that you kind of don't really feel like you're in that same world anymore. Like, what I mean when I say that is most of the show takes place either in the future when he is on the run or at his house, but a predominant portion of the show when he's a kid takes place in either the school, at his at Sato's house, or on the bus, kind of like towards the middle of the show. Now, you kind of like, this kind of builds up the whole world to you to kind of get used to that area and that surrounding. But then around episode 9, they kind of just don't go there anymore. Like, they throw you into like they throw all of them right into a random like warehouse where is their secret base. And from then on, everything kind of just feels like disconnected from the world that they actually built before that. Now, I kind of felt like it was a little disappointing. I mean, yes, I know that them having the hideout had relevance to them trying to save the next girl, but in reality, I felt like they could have achieved something similar if they just went about it in a different direction and keeping it within that same world, or at least building onto that world rather than just separating them completely and throwing them into a random place. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, but I did feel like it kind of just took the immersion out of it for me a little bit. Now, I would say kind of like the biggest issue I had with it was they didn't do a very good job of kind of, I guess, making the big reveal that big of a reveal. Like, I don't know about everybody else, but I could pretty much tell right from the beginning that the teacher was going to be the bad guy. Like, right from like the second or third episode when they first introduced him, being that he was the only person that actually had knowledge of all of these people, and also he knew the most about them, and also he was directly like tied in with all these kids and all of the people that were around, kind of gave it away. And I know that like when Sato opens the glove compartment of the car and all the lollipops follow, that was supposed to be like the big epiphany moment for watchers, being understanding that he could very possibly be the killer. But I kind of felt like it was him from the very beginning. Like, I mean, it couldn't have been the mom, because when they first show in the first episode the guy that stabs his mom, it's a dude with red eyes. And I know they don't show the teacher with red eyes anymore, but like, who else could it really have been at that point? I mean, I kind of just felt like anybody with basic foreshadowing knowledge really could have seen through it, and I wish they kind of did a little bit more with it. And if anything, they could have just kept the teacher in the background a little bit more throughout the show, rather than having him up front. I mean, I actually liked this character as just being like the wholesome dad of Sato, the dad that he didn't have. But I also kind of saw it coming from the beginning that he would be the bad guy. So not a great big reveal. I mean, I still appreciated it, but they definitely could have done something else to kind of mask it under that and not make it so obvious, I felt like. Now, for the second part, or I guess in this case, the third part. For the third part of this is kind of a big one for me in a good way. And that's the art style of this show. Now, the art style of this show, honestly, the one word I can use that describes it all in one would be breathtaking. Like, the art style for me, honestly, I had a hard time really believing that it was actually a show and not a movie, because the art quality was so good that like it looked like it should have been like a high production film. Now, I really enjoyed just kind of going along with the themes of dark and light. I really enjoyed the way that they even portrayed the scenery as dark and light in it. I mean, you go from these incredibly vivid landscapes full of like luscious greenery or cityscapes to this more arid and like dark and dingy and dusty like parts of town where it feels like just looking at the pictures with no words, you just feel cold to like your core, to your bones. And on top of that, the actual character animations were fairly decent. I mean, a lot of times I will see production companies that they will go through and they'll make sure that their backdrops and scenery are all beautiful, but then the actual animation will just look like complete shit. Black Clover, I'm looking at you. Yeah, but this show definitely did not have that. I mean, I definitely felt like everything from the clothing to the way the characters were designed to the actual movement and animation behind them was all pretty much spot on. Like, I didn't see anything in there that seemed completely out of place or looked jarring compared to the rest of it. I mean, I would say everything just kind of went well together and meshed perfectly. Now, the one gripe I did have, and it's a small one, but it's a gripe nonetheless. What is up with the mom's lips? Like why? I don't understand what they're trying to achieve there. Like, they gave her like the outline of lips, but there's like several instances where it shows her from the side and she doesn't actually have any protruding lips, but then it shows her straight on and she has this weird like emo girl lip outline. I'm very confused. Like, does she outline her lips? Are her lips supposed to be big? Like, they don't really give us anything to kind of go off of except that she has outlines. That was pretty much it. And there's only like 2 characters in the whole show that have this. It's literally just Sato's mom and then like Caillou's mom. And that's it. Like, there's nobody else. So, yeah, I don't really know why they did that. But aside from that, art style, phenomenal. Like, honestly, art style, I mean, I wouldn't quite say it's up to par with like something like Your Lie in April, which that art is just vivid and colorful and beautiful. This one wasn't quite there, but I would honestly say it was a solid 8.5 out of 10. Now, overall for the show, I would say I would recommend it to anybody to watch. Like, this is a phenomenal anime. Whether or not you're just getting started in anime or you're a veteran and you've already watched like 20 or 30 shows before this, anybody can really pick up this show, watch it in a day or two, and be left with a lot of, like, I want to say gratitude, but I know that's not the right word. Just feeling good about watching it. I mean, the plot is very solid. The character development is all right, but the art style and the music and everything ties everything together and it's such a small bite-sized amount of 12 episodes that you really can't complain, because it's not like you spent 24 or 56 episodes watching something to get nothing out of it. It's 12 episodes. Like, if you don't like it, then just move on. But overall, I would highly recommend anybody to watch this show. It was fairly great. Honestly, I would say it's probably one of my top 5 anime I've watched of 2020 so far. Now, would I watch it again? I probably will. I probably will watch it again in a couple of years after I've kind of forgotten about it and it's faded from my mind or been erased. But I would definitely recommend it. Now, if you agree with me on anything that I said here, or maybe you even disagree with me, make sure to let me know in the comments. I mean, I'm hyped on this show right now. And so I really want to talk about it. If you have a comment on it, or you want to let me know something that I missed, something you disagree with me on, drop it in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to drop a like on it. Subscribe if you feel like it. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I hope I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care. Peace.